Kim Ledbetter's bill on assisted dying comes to the Commons this week. How will you vote?
I'll vote for it. I voted for it in 2015. I think the right checks and balances are there. Obviously, we're not oblivious to the concerns that people raise about things like coercion. But I think people should have the right to choose. You should have dominion over your body and your soul. And so I think it's really important that people are given that choice, both in Parliament, of course, the vote on Friday, but ultimately the decision for people to end their life in this way.
Your leader's expressed her doubts. Are Conservative MPs going to have a free vote?
Yes, as that's how I understand it. I think every parliamentarian will get a free vote on this. I think that's absolutely the right thing. I think people need to take into account about 600 people every year who are terminally ill take their own lives, their own hands, and that's a terrible decision for people to have to take. So this gives people that choice. So this is happening anyway, and people are going to Switzerland instead of being able to do this in the UK. So, yeah, I get all the arguments, the slippery slope arguments and all these kind of things, and we need the right checks and balances. I believe those checks and balances are there in this legislation. So, you know, two doctors overseeing this and a court overseeing this. So,
does it bother you that cabinet ministers have taken a public view on this? Because the convention is that on a free vote like this, the government shouldn't take a position.
It doesn't actually, because I think it's so important we have a proper debate about this, and you see that from all different perspectives. But the perspective I see it from is personal experience, to be honest, Trevor. I saw my mum pass away in very difficult circumstances, and I think that choice should have been there then. And I think other people should have that choice. And I don't think it's right that people are prevented from having that choice from people who have a different view. That is my view, and I fully respect other people's view. But I think the most compelling argument is the slippery slope. Okay. Will this move down a certain way? But we've seen in other jurisdictions, Oregon, for example, has had these measures in place just for terminally ill people for 27 years, and that slippery slope situation has not happened.
All right. On the international scene, there's been an ICC ruling indicting Benjamin Netanyahu of various crimes. If Keir Starmer keeps to his word and obeys the ICC ruling, would you support a decision to arrest the Israeli PM if he came to London?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, we don't, for a number of reasons. Israel is not a signatory to the Rome Statute on this. Palestine is not a recognised state. We think this is the wrong move diplomatically as well as legally, so we wouldn't. And we think Labour Keir Starmer should definitely say that he's not going to participate in the ICC ruling.
But we are, as a state, we did sign the Rome Statute. We are a member of the ICC, like I think in 120 other countries. Do you think that we should leave the ICC?
No, I don't think that. But I do think we should be able to make a judgment.
But then how can you be in a court and accept that a court is legitimate, but decide when you are going to accept its rulings or not?
Well, courts sometimes get things wrong. We should be able to have a view on those things, and I think we should have a view on this. I mean, what you're trying to make sure is we get to the best possible outcome, the release of the hostages and peace in Israel and Gaza. That's what everybody wants. So the best way to pursue that is through diplomatic routes rather than these kind of legal routes, which we think are not the right way forward. And I am also very concerned about some of the actions of Israel. Israel absolutely needs to do more to prevent the loss of life, but nevertheless, they're in a situation where to me, there's no moral equivalence between Israel and Hamas, and that's what the ICC are seeming to draw.
But this ICC point is quite important. I mean, either you're in a court and rule of law, Tories stand for that and so on, or you're not in it.
Well, I don't agree with that, because, again, the reasons that I outlined earlier.
You don't agree with the rule of law?
The Rome Statute. Israel are not a signatory to that. Palestine is not a recognised state. So I think there are legal issues around that.
All right, let me just ask you about something in your own area of responsibility. Both Deputy Prime Minister, Housing Minister and the Prime Minister say that loosening planning laws are central to growth. Would you support any move to make the process easier by, for example, making local objections harder to mount?
Well, it depends what they mean by that. If they're removing democracy from the process, I don't agree with that. But I do agree with planning reforms, and I wish Angela Rayner well with those reforms. Clearly, the planning process is far too complex.
What reforms would make a difference, do you think, though?
Well, I think you need to...
Every government comes in and says we're going to reform planning.
Well, I think, actually, one of the things Labour said they'd do is put more resources into planning. It's often a resource thing as much as a reform thing. So resourcing is good. I'm not convinced those will bring the rewards that Angela Rayner thinks they will, but nevertheless, I do see planning reform as being important. But I have real concerns about some of the plans that Angela Rayner has on this, lowering the targets for urban areas, increasing massively the targets for rural areas, a threefold increase in target in my area, for example. So I'm very concerned about that. We had record levels of house building in the UK under our government between 2013 to 2023, record levels in the last 50 years. You can do this. I'm not sure Labour are on the right track to do it, but we'll watch with interest.
Your leader says that she's going to go slow on policy, focus on values and so on and so forth. But we have heard two very definite views about policy. One is that she says she would reverse VAT on school fees. The other is that she would reverse inheritance tax changes on farmers. It's interesting. Is a new Conservative battleground going to be to defend, essentially, the rural middle classes? It sounds very traditional Toryism.
Well, I'll tell you what it should be there to defend aspiration. Sending your child, paying to send your child to school, why would you tax that? People create businesses, not just farmers,
It's the 7% who can afford to pay.
Sorry?
You're taxing the 7% who can afford to pay fees.
Many people make sacrifices to send their children to public school. And, of course, the taxes they pay in their general life send other people's children to school. Why should they be taxed on that? But it's aspiration. It's not just that. It's about starting a business, the taxes on business, which they said they would never apply. All those broken promises. Do you remember the fully costed, fully funded manifesto? All those broken promises. £40 billion of tax increases. That's what we're seeing from this government.
But let me come back to the question I asked you, because you want to defend, help people who want to send their children to private schools. You want to defend farmers who have got £1 million in assets. It sounds really, let me put it this way, that actually this sounds like the old Tories who defend moneyed interests and the rich.
This is about aspiration and growth. You remember the Labour government set out for growth. When they inherited our economy, it was the first quarter this year, 0.7% growth. The second quarter, 0.5% growth. This quarter, 0.1% growth. What do you think drives growth in our economy? It is businesses that drive growth. It is not governments. Those farmers, you're talking about, I've got to talk to you about this £1 million, because I have a farm in my constituency, mid-sized farm, these people just about break even, 350 acres, they're facing a £500,000 bill to pay their inheritance tax. That's 12 years of profits. Don't tell me these people are millionaires rolling in money, they can pay this money. It'll destroy family farming in this country.
Kemi Badenoch, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Trevor.